the 3-month consultation period for the Basic Education Laws Amendment, or BELA Act, concluded last Friday. Now, following the opposition in September, President Cyril Ramaphosa then put a hold on implementing sections 4 and 5 of the Act, and this, of course, relating to language policy and admissions processes at schools for 3 months in order to allow for deliberation among GNU parties. Now, during the bill's public signing, President Ramaphosa said that if the parties could not reach an agreement before the deadline on Friday, the 13th of December, the full implementation of the Act would proceed. Meanwhile, the South African Democratic Teachers Union has threatened legal action if the 2 controversial clauses of the BELA Amendment Act are signed into law. Now, SADTU General Secretary Dr. Mugwena Maluleke joins us now virtually to share their position. Dr. Maluleke, thanks so much for your time. Let me just start off by saying our sincere condolences to you on the bereavement that you have suffered, and we appreciate you making the time to speak to us this morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sakina, and good morning to your viewers at home, and thanks for having us indeed.
Dr. Maluleke, we spoke to the DA's federal chairperson, Helen Ziller, yesterday about the latest developments around the BELA Act. Now, SADTU has threatened legal action around those 2 controversial clauses that have been put in suspension, so to speak, and Friday was the deadline. That has now passed. So where does SADTU stand now with regard to the BELA Act and what needs to happen moving forward?
We are busy with our legal counsel preparing papers to file them early January, because for now the court is in recess, and so that we would want the court to compel the president to promulgate the date for the implementation of clauses 4 and 5. So we are in that particular process.
Which is interesting in itself because, as you say, now you want the court to compel the president to move on this matter. SADTU, of course, an affiliate of COSATU, which is a part of the tripartite alliance with the ANC and, of course, the South African Communist Party. Has there been no discussion among the members of the tripartite alliance? Because there was deliberation around this matter, at least among some members of the GNU. I would imagine that given the seriousness of it all, the tripartite alliance itself would have also deliberated on this.
The tripartite alliance has been left out of the discussions. If you could remember very well, there were some discussions which were secret at the level of Nedlac. We are the convener of Labour constituency in Nedlac as COSATU, but we were not even informed around that particular process. We only knew when the so-called agreement was signed. So the tripartite alliance has not been involved. Hence, you have had the Communist Party during the weekend has taken a decision to support SADTU's legal action as well as the industrial action on the first day of reopening of a school in January 2025.
So let's talk about those deliberations at Nedlac, because there were quite a few questions around that. As you say, as the conveners, you were left out of the fold. So what does that then mean for the standing, legal or otherwise, of those deliberations at Nedlac?
In law, we believe that those agreements do not have any force and effect, as we believe that this is a process that the president has a prerogative to sign into law any legislation, and therefore there was no need for that. But we told it was to avert a strike. Of course, it's something that we laugh at, because solidarity has got no force in education to the extent that it could have even impacted on education or any disruption whatsoever. So clearly it is that what we cannot do as SADTU, though, whilst these particular agreements, we believe that it has got no force or effect in education, we do not want to sleep. Because once we fatigue as an organization, what's going to happen is that the president would come back to us and say, look, you guys have said nothing. The other parties have now an agreement, and this particular agreement says the act must be implemented 2026, so therefore I will implement that. So we're not going to sleep.
As things stand right now, Dr. Maluleke, what is your understanding of the consternation or what it is that the Democratic Alliance and Solidarity and others who are opposed to the implementation of clauses 5 are concerned about. What do you understand their concern to be?
Well, first and foremost, I must indicate that the fears and the worries that are so unfounded. The first was to really, demonize this particular bill by bringing things that were never in the bill before. And now that the bill has been, or the act is now signed, all of a sudden we're being told that they want to support mother tongue learning. Of course, all of us support mother tongue learning, but let me make it very clear to you, it is not about supporting mother tongue learning. It is supporting, separate development. It is to say, go and build a school for Setswana, go and build a school for Xitsonga. Don't integrate our education system. Don't bring your children to our schools because they are going to impact on our culture. They are going to impact on our language. They are going to lower the standard. That is the real issue here. It's about deracialization. It's about integration, which they don't want. They are saying they want African schools. So you cannot have in a country where the constitution, based on Section 9, is a constitution that is based on the Bill of Rights to then say people of this country are a nation and not ethnic groups or racial groups. But you keep on saying there's an African school. So that is the issue, is that they don't want to have their children mixed with other races. They want purity. So that is what they're saying. You bring black children, they're going to lower the standard here. You bring them, they're going to affect our culture. We want our culture to remain African's culture. And so we're a multicultural, we're a multiracial, we're a multilingual society. And we have this diversity as a heritage, which we believe we need to be able to work together, live together.
In speaking to Helen Zille yesterday from the DA, she basically expressed the concern around Afrikaans possibly being eradicated as a result of the upward referral, so to speak, to the provincial department when it comes to decisions that have already been taken around language and admission policy at schools. Is that something that could possibly happen? Is there anything in the Act that could possibly turn out to a situation where Afrikaans as a language would come under threat?
No, Afrikaans is protected just like any other language is protected. It's unfortunate that the indigenous languages have not been protected up until this day, but Afrikaans, English, they're protected because in the Act, nothing that threatens. That's why I say these allegations or these fears are really unfounded. They are baseless. The only thing is that people don't want to integrate because nothing in the Act that says the head of department can say you cannot teach Afrikaans. Here we must face the facts. When learners or the schools admit other learners from other racial groups, what the Afrikaners are doing, they take their children out. So at the end of the day, you find that the school has got white teachers, but there are no white children because the white children have been taken to a folk school somewhere that is built on a farm. So they move all the time, they move away from this particular school without anybody threatening them. The threat they have is that they don't want to integrate with other races.
With regard to the protection of languages, and you say that other indigenous languages have not been protected, please explain that to us. And perhaps this is another fear that compounds the concerns that those around Afrikaans are centered around would speak to. So what do you mean by the lack of protection for indigenous languages?
One, what happened since 1994, it is that the other African languages would not have the freedom to choose that I want my kid to be taught in Sepedi from grade 1 up to grade 12. And there was no investment by the government to ensure that they are this research around these particular languages and so forth, so that they are strengthened and they brought to the level of Afrikaans and English. And therefore, that's what we are saying. Now that you want to make sure that the community itself protects their languages by making sure that they participate in a democratic process where finally they will say, this is the language policy of our school. And bringing in the community is because you also want to say, you are a school here, you serve the community, you don't only have a single language. You might have people speaking Spedi, other people speaking Xhosa, but you need to determine in terms of the number of learners that are there in that particular community, and then be able to say, this is going to be a parallel English, Afrikaans, or Sesotho, or is going to be a bilingual, and so forth. So you're bringing that democratization of our schools so that you also protect these other languages that have not been protected because it was only English and Afrikaans. But the two dominant languages are not threatened, and the new languages that will also be introduced will not be threatened because it is now going to be the community that takes that decision to say, we want our school to be able to use these two languages or three languages. For example, myself as a principal, my school has 5 languages. And it's because I had to introduce Tswana and Sitsonga, which were not there in that area because Soshangube was not supposed to teach Setswana. But we have got Setswana learners, and then we had to introduce it. It was not a difficult thing to teach. The only thing is, the threat was that we didn't have books, we did not have the support in terms of research because our languages were not developed to the level of English and Afrikaans. But this act is promoting that now, and we are happy about it.
And then we're out of time, Mr. Maluleke, but I quickly have to ask you, so following these deliberations, the matter, of course, in the hands of the president, what's the next step? What should the president do, and what will you be doing as SADTU?
One, we think the president should not find himself in an operational area of listening to fears that are not there, that are unfounded. The president must just promulgate the act, and then we will deal with what we're supposed to deal with. And then any other person who's not happy, like we're not happy if the president does not do that, that's why we're going to court. That's why we'll use our industrial action. And we don't want to threaten somebody and say, no, we'll pull out of what? We're just doing follow the act. So we are following the law. We are going to go to court. And then we are also going to support our court action by a strike on the first day of the reopening of schools in January.
Well, Dr. Maluleke, thank you so much for your time.